21 tonight. Proverbs 21, verse 24. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'll read the verse from last week. There's a connection here that I want us to see. Starting in verse 23 of Proverbs chapter 21. Proverbs 21, verse 23 says, "Whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from troubles." Verse 24 now. "Proud and haughty, scorner is his name, who dealeth in proud wrath." Now, as we go through this, what we'll see is that the mark of the scorner, he speaks wrongly, and therefore he does not keep his soul from trouble. Now, this, in many ways, this is an illustration of what verse 23 says. Because he speaks wrongly, he's a scorner. Now, if we phrased it a little bit, rearranged it a little bit, you can understand verse 24 to say scorners are proud and haughty. That proud and haughty are the marks of a scorner. And that they then act, the scorner acts in proud wrath. The reason I have the picture of the duck up there, how do you tell if somebody's a duck? That's a weird question, right? If they quack like a duck, if they walk like a duck, if they swim like a duck, it's a duck. And that's how good I am with pictures. That's all I could come up with for tonight's lesson. So this little ducky follows all the way through. Because this is a verse describing how a scoffer acts. And if that's how a scoffer acts, somebody who is in the book of Proverbs repeatedly condemned, then we don't want to act that way. And so it's a lesson by negation. Here's what they do. That's not what we as the people of God need to do. Here's how they break verse 23. We do not want to do that. So first thing, let's define a scorner. I am going to use the term scorner and scoffer interchangeably. They mean the same thing. Scoffer would be a more modern understanding of the term scorner, since they both start with S and end with ER. I'll use them interchangeably. I'm not trying to make any sort of point about that. But defining a scorner. This word, it comes from a verb that literally means to turn aside, and came to be used to mean speak indirectly. To speak against something. It's sort of like the term froward in the King James, where it means not towards something, but from, away from something, missing the mark. And so a scorner is, quite simply, one who speaks against God. One who speaks against God. We're in church, we know that's wrong. We're Christians, we know that's wrong. And there's a lot of people that if you walked up to them on the street and you say, is it good to speak against God? Now this is probably changing in the dynamics of the culture around us. Most of them would probably say no. But then their lives would reveal something else. Last week and this week, we're talking about the tongue. A scorner is somebody who speaks against God. We want to guard the tongue. We want to protect our speech. And so we need to be very careful in how we speak. How we speak about the issues and problems in our lives. I've been trying and really thinking about, and you guys know this, James chapter 1. Who's all memorizing James chapter 1? Elena is, all right. Lydia, no more than Elena by camp. Can you do it?
No, I'm doing a different Bible class and I have to learn a lot of verses for.
You're young. You're a sponge. Just do it, the Nike motto. But anyways, James chapter 1, verse 2 says what? We're supposed to count it all joy when we meet various trials, when we fall into various trials, when various troubles and difficulties come into our lives, we're to count it as joy. We're to speak of it with that. A scorner doesn't do that. A scorner takes every opportunity he can to tell everybody how he deserves better. In fact, that's the marks of a scorner. One of the fascinating things about these two descriptors, proud and haughty, they could both legitimately be translated proud and proud. They're different words, they have slightly different meanings, but the point is this is a scoffer, a scorner is somebody who is proud. So what does it mean to be proud? Well, the Hebrew word, this first Hebrew word here, means insolent or presumptuous and is used to describe a rebellious man. We sometimes use the word pride in a positive way. Like if you have pride in workmanship, that means you did your best, you worked hard, you paid attention to details, you tried to produce a good product, so on and so forth. This Hebrew word wouldn't be used in that way at all. This is the Hebrew word to describe somebody who thinks they know better than God. Now, thinking you know better than God could be looking at his commandments and saying, no, those aren't for me, those are for somebody else. Thinking you know better than God can also be looking at the circumstances in your life and saying, no, God, I deserve better. Looking and demanding, wanting more. And that's a little bit of the next one too. But this idea here of rebellious, of somebody who is proud. The book of Proverbs doesn't say much positive about such a person. Ron?
And with another word that might be synonymous with that, be mocker, someone who mocks.
It certainly would be the right attitude. This would be the attitude of the mocker. That would probably be more, not proud, but scorner would be, mocker would probably be a synonym for that one as well. But it's certainly the same attitude, right? Mocking God. Right. Saying they know more. Mocking the people of God. Proud. The second word there, haughty, means, again, it can mean proud. But in this case, it's more the idea of arrogantly superior. Somebody who's, what's the phrase? Nose down at people, nose up at people, whatever the right phrase is there. High-minded. Somebody who thinks they're better than everybody else.
Like the soldiers did to Jesus when they...
Absolutely.
When they gave him the purple cloak.
Right? And they were mocking him. You think about, I thought you meant something else too, is, even at the cross, what were people saying at the cross?
Save yourself.
Yeah. Hey, you saved others, save yourself. You saved you to tear down the temple. And now you can't even save yourself, right? That type of haughty, mocking, arrogance. The English word haughty, which is a good translation, means arrogantly superior among other things. That we understand that somebody who thinks they're better in this context, somebody who thinks they're better than God. The people at the cross thought they were better than Jesus. They were not. I want you to turn in your Bibles to the book of Habakkuk. Habakkuk chapter 2. To see this word in action. It paints a picture for us. Habakkuk chapter 2. One of those great minor prophets. I wonder how many sons I'd have to get to Habakkuk. Probably shouldn't say that out loud right now. But anyways, Hebrews, it's HB. But no, Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 5. Yea, also, because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man. There's our word, haughty. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. But gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Describing this man who is going to be judged, this man who is wicked, who he cannot be satisfied. That he's never satisfied, never enough. You notice how that describes the arrogantly superior? The haughty that gives us, they just want and want and want and want. I want more stuff. I want more things. I want more honor, more respect, more money, more authority, more power. They cannot be satisfied. He enlarges his desires because his desires are only for things. We have to be careful. We live in a very wealthy country. We have a lot of stuff. We have to be aware of the danger that brings. The covetousness that is around us, that's even being described by this verse. But notice something, that this is the opposite of the faithful. That there's a comparison that happens in verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. That this one in Habakkuk, that is almost this offhanded comment in the middle of describing this man who is not upright in himself, who enlarges his desires, all that cannot be satisfied. The proud man, yet the just shall live by faith. One of the marks, maybe the mark, of pride is self-dependence. In many ways, that's when we're talking about pride, we're talking about somebody who thinks, I have everything I need in and of myself. I don't need anybody else. I don't need anybody else's opinion. In fact, the proud, like the fool in the book of Proverbs, like the scoffer in the book of Proverbs, does what? He gives his opinion. Everybody needs my opinion. I don't need anybody's opinion. And that's the exact opposite of those who walk by faith. Those who walk by faith say, you know what? We have nothing. We know nothing. We need God at every moment of every day. We must seek him. Back in Proverbs 21, it is no surprise the acts of the scorner. Verse 24 says, he dealeth in proud wrath. Or to rephrase it a little bit, he acts with overflowing pride. Overflowing is a picture of fury, out of control anger, and how it's used here. The idea is that the wrath is filled up and the person has just lost control in that anger, and that's how he's acting. And this word pride is related to the other one, insolent and presumptuous. It is no surprise that the scoffer who is proud and haughty acts, in essence, proud and haughty. That doesn't surprise us. But you notice that there's a connection, that the things that we say, the things that we think, are going to work their way out into our actions. That the gospel, the power of the gospel is that it cleanses us from the inside. God works in us both to will and to do. We're to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. Proverbs 16 verse 18 warns us about this man. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. The pride leads to destruction. A haughty spirit leads to a fall. Therefore, as the people of God, as we so often come back to, we are to walk humbly with our God. He's shown us what he requires of us, to walk humbly with God, to say yes to God, to say yes to God's commandments, to say yes to God's providence in our lives. Now, you can say no all you want. It doesn't change anything. That puts you in the category of the proud and the haughty. So as the people of God, knowing the character of our God, the glory of our God, may we walk humbly with him. May we say yes to him. Let's pray.